Yeah, let's unpack this. There's this device, right? Basically attached to us constantly, our phones. And, for a lot of us, there's that little nagging thought, maybe in the back of our minds. Could it, actually be watching us? Could someone somehow get into your phone's camera without you even knowing? It's a pretty modern kind of anxiety, isn't it? Taps right
Yes.
into privacy fears. And you sent over this whole stack of material just for this deep dive, articles, research notes, all sorts of things, really digging into this exact topic. So our mission today, basically, is to jump into all that information you provided. We want to pull out the really key stuff, figure out if this phone camera hacking thing is actually possible, explore how the sources say it might happen, understand the signs you could look for, and maybe most importantly, lay out the practical steps the material suggests you can take to, well, protect yourself. Okay, let's dive into what these sources actually reveal.
Yeah, and what's really striking right away, just looking through this material, is how it tackles that big fear head on. Based on everything you shared, the answer seems to be, well, yes. Unfortunately, phone cameras can be hacked. It's not just, sci-fi or some wild theory. The sources show it's a documented thing, and the research makes it really clear. Understanding how it can be done is like the absolute first step to defending yourself.
Exactly. And the sources don't just say, yes, it's possible and stop there. They give us a really a clear breakdown of the different ways someone might try to get that access. There seem to be three main methods that really jump out from the material you sent. The first one is maybe the most straightforward.
Okay.
It involves commercially available spyware or these monitoring apps.
Right. And one thing that surprised me in the research is just how easy some of these tools are to get hold of. They're often marketed sort of sneakily for legitimate things like, parents monitoring kids or companies tracking work phones. But they can totally be misused. They can grab photos, record video, even give someone a live look through your camera all, completely secretly.
And the key point here, from what the material says, to install this kind of software, usually someone needs physical access to your phone, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. That detail from the sources feels really important because it often means the threat might be someone you actually know, like maybe a partner or family or even someone at work who had a chance to grab your phone, right?
Precisely. It's a good reminder that security isn't just digital walls, that physical access point is a real weak spot. Okay, so moving on, the second method described in the sources involves malicious apps, but they get onto your phone through phishing attacks.
Ah, yeah. The classic scam, those fake emails, dodgy texts, weird social media messages trying to fool you.
Exactly that. The material really highlights how hackers use phishing these deceptive messages to trick you, the user, into downloading and installing a harmful app. Once you've been fooled into putting it on your phone, that app just quietly gives the attacker permissions. And that can include, full access to your camera and mic.
So unlike the first way that needed someone to physically touch the phone, this one is all about tricking you into basically opening the door yourself. You're kind of social engineered into installing the problem.
Correct. It plays on trust, or maybe just a moment of not paying attention. Then the third method the sources talk about is, well, quite different. And frankly, it sounds more like spy movie stuff, advanced spyware, like the Pegasus example mentioned.
Oh yeah, Pegasus. That's been huge news. What makes that category so different from the others, based on the material?
Well, this is where it gets particularly worrying. Because as the research points out, these super advanced tools often need zero user interaction. None at all. You don't have to click anything, download anything. You don't have to be tricked. They can exploit hidden weaknesses, security flaws in the phone's actual operating system to install themselves remotely, silently.
Wow, that sounds incredibly difficult to stop if you don't even have to make a mistake.
It is, yeah, that's the point. The sources do say these are less common than the other methods, but they're a significant concern, especially for people who might be high-profile targets, think journalists, activists, that sort of thing, precisely because they're so sneaky and have those zero-click ways of getting in.
Okay, so we've got the methods, spyware needing physical access, malicious apps via phishing, and then these rare but really potent zero-click exploits. The key takeaway from the material seems to be attackers go after different weak points. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's us, our behavior, and sometimes it's really technical flaws in the phone itself.
And understanding that difference is crucial because, as the sources kind of imply, how you defend yourself needs to match up with these different attack types.
Right. So knowing how is step one. Step two, according to the material, is figuring out how you might actually spot it if it is happening. What are those, telltale signs that maybe someone's spying through your camera?
Well, the sources list a few potential clues. The first bunch falls under just like weird phone behavior. They suggest watching out for your phone getting unusually hot when you're not really using it, or the battery draining way faster than normal, or maybe seeing a sudden, unexplained spike in how much data you're using.
Hmm. But couldn't those things just be like, my phone's getting old, or I installed a buggy app or something?
They absolutely could, yeah. And the material is careful to add that caveat. These signs are not definite proof someone's spying on you, not at all. However, the insight from the sources is that these symptoms could indicate some kind of malware running constantly in the background, maybe accessing the camera or sending data out, which uses up battery, processing power, and data. So, yeah, not conclusive, but definitely flags worth paying attention to.
Okay. Is there anything like more direct the sources mention? Something that's a clearer warning?
Yes, definitely. And this is probably the most useful visual clue the material brings up. Most modern phones, iPhones and Androids, they have a built-in privacy feature,
Mhm.
a little light or dot that shows when the camera or microphone is being used. The sources specifically call out looking for a small green dot appearing at the top of your phone screen.
Oh, the green dot. Yeah, I know that one. I see it when I use my camera.
Exactly. Now, here's the crucial bit from the research. If you see that green dot light up when you are not actively, intentionally using your camera yourself, like you haven't opened the camera app, you're not on a video call, nothing like that, the sources basically call this a definite red flag.
Okay, wow. So if I see that green dot pop up unexpectedly, what's the immediate next step? What do the sources say to do?
The material gives a very direct instruction to swipe down from the top of your screen, to bring down the control center or notification shade. Doing that should reveal exactly which app is currently using the camera. If the app listed there is something you didn't open on purpose, or worse, something you don't even recognize, the sources say that's a really serious cause for concern.
Gotcha. So subtle behavior changes are maybe a hint, but the green dot is a much clearer warning sign. What else do the sources suggest checking?
This one is probably the most powerful check you can actually do yourself. The material really stresses reviewing your app permissions. The thinking here is simple. For spyware to use your camera, it absolutely has to have permission to access the camera. Hackers need to grant that permission somehow.
And the sources give us the actual steps for how to check that, right? Like it's something you listening can do right now.
Exactly. The research lays it out clearly. If you're on an iPhone, you go to Settings, then Privacy and Security, then tap on Camera. If you're on Android, it's usually Settings, then Privacy, then Permission Manager, and then Find Camera in that list.
Okay, and once I'm looking at that list of apps with camera access, what am I looking for?
You just need to scan through that list. The sources are really blunt about this. If you see any app listed there that you don't recognize, or maybe you recognize it but you don't remember giving it camera access, or it just seems suspicious that it needs camera access, the advice is clear. Remove it immediately, or at least revoke its permission. This check gets right to the heart of who actually has the ability to turn on your camera.
This really makes you think about how easily we sometimes just click allow when an app asks for permissions, maybe without really thinking it through.
Yeah.
It definitely makes me want to be more careful about hitting allow without pausing.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating point from the sources, actually, how our own behavior in granting permissions can sometimes, inadvertently open a door. It's a security factor itself. Oh, and related to that, beyond just checking permissions manually, the material also highlights using trusted anti-spyware apps to regularly scan your phone. They note that spyware is one of the most common ways hackers gain control of your camera, so a good scan can help find hidden threats you might miss otherwise.
Okay, great. So we've covered that it is possible, the ways hackers might do it, and how you might spot the signs. Now let's get to the really empowering part from the sources. What concrete steps can you, listening right now, take to protect yourself? The material laid out several really essential tips.
Yes. Moving from spotting the problem to actively preventing it. The very first tip is, well, it's fundamental. Keep your phone's operating system and all your apps fully updated all the time.
Why is just doing updates so important for, like, camera security specifically?
Well, the sources explain it really clearly. Updates aren't just about getting new emojis or fixing little glitches. They contain crucial security patches. These patches are designed specifically to close the vulnerabilities, those security weaknesses we talked about that hackers exploit, especially the kinds used by that advanced spyware, like Pegasus. So enabling automatic updates is really the easiest way to make sure you get those defenses as soon as they're ready.
Simple, but Sounds like it's really effective against those nasty technical exploits. What's another practical defense the sources mentioned?
This one's refreshingly low tech, actually. The material suggests using a phone case that has a physical camera cover built in.
You mean like a little sliding door over the lens? That's simple.
Exactly that simple. And that's kind of the beauty of it, right? As the sources imply, it's just a physical barrier. It's incredibly effective.
Yeah.
Even if some super sophisticated spyware manages to bypass all your software defenses and get onto your phone, it physically cannot see through a closed cover. It's a really robust kind of no-nonsense layer of security.
Huh. That's actually a great insight.
Yeah.
Sometimes the simplest fix is the most reliable one. Okay, what else did the sources recommend?
Strengthening your phone's basic lock screen security. So using a strong passcode, the material suggests at least 8 characters, mix of letters, numbers, symbols, and also enabling biometric locks if your phone has them fingerprint or face recognition.
How does having a strong passcode actually help stop someone hacking my camera, though?
Well, remember that first method we talked about? The commercial spyware that often needs someone to physically install it. Having strong authentication, a passcode that's hard to guess quickly, plus biometrics makes it much, much harder for someone to just grab your phone when you're not looking, unlock it fast, and install that nasty software. It's a key defense against that very common physical access threat vector.
Right, right. Stopping that attack before it can even get loaded onto the device makes sense. And we touched on scanning earlier, but the sources also list that specifically as a protective measure, too.
They do. Running regular scans using well-regarded, trusted anti-spyware apps is definitely presented as a proactive step. Since spyware is identified as such a common threat vector for camera access, doing those periodic checks helps you find and get rid of anything malicious that might be hiding.
Okay. And there was one more specific feature mentioned, I think, for iPhone users.
Yes, lockdown mode. The sources describe this as a special mode on iPhones that significantly limits some of the phone's functions. Its specific goal, according to the research, is to make it much harder for those really sophisticated, targeted spyware attacks like Pegasus to succeed. The material suggests it's a really valuable option if you think you might be, a high-risk target for that kind of advanced threat.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Looking at all these tips from the sources together, you've got this whole range of defenses, right?
Yeah.
From the super basic, like a physical camera cover and a decent passcode, all the way up to keeping complex software updated constantly, and even activating advanced settings like lockdown mode if you need it. It really shows that protecting yourself isn't about just one thing, it's about layering these different kinds of security.
Yeah, and if we connect this back to the bigger picture we discussed earlier, these tips directly counter the different ways attackers try to get in. Strong authentication blocks that physical access needed for basic spyware. Keeping software updated and using lockdown mode helps defend against those advanced zero-click exploits. And being careful with permissions, plus running anti-spyware scans, helps deal with the risks from those malicious apps delivered through phishing. The material essentially lays out a defense strategy with multiple layers, tackling the threats from different angles.
So, okay, pulling it all together then, based on all the sources you shared. Yes, unfortunately, phone camera hacking is a real thing. It's possible. But, and this is the important part, the material also gives us really clear ways to, first, recognize potential signs. From those subtle weird behaviors to that really critical green dot indicator, and especially how to directly check your app permissions.
And maybe most importantly, you listening now have a clear set of practical, totally actionable steps drawn straight from this research to protect yourself. These steps range from adopting really simple physical habits, like using a camera cover, to making sure you're using the built-in software features correctly, and just maintaining good digital hygiene, like keeping everything updated.
You're basically armed now with the knowledge from these sources to be more vigilant and to actually implement these protections. It's really about being informed and taking back some control over your device's security using these steps.
Just think about how deeply integrated our smartphones are now into literally every part of our lives. This deep dive into your sources, it really highlights that constant, sometimes subtle balance we're all navigating every single day between this incredible technological convenience we rely on and the very real need to actively look after our digital privacy. It's a powerful reminder, I think, that just staying informed and using some surprisingly simple tools can actually make a significant difference, even against some pretty sophisticated digital threats out there. Definitely something to keep thinking about as we, live our connected lives. That wraps up today's discussion. Thanks for watching and tuning in. If you're curious to dive deeper into this topic, make sure to visit our website, The link is in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.